Hello and welcome to this episode of the Alignment with Jenn podcast. I am your host, Jenn, and today we are going to be getting into the subconscious mind and how to use it to brainwash yourself in order to create your dream life and the level of success that you desire, to get rid of negative thinking and really live in alignment with the version of you that you want to be. I firmly believe that our subconscious mind is where it is at. It is the driving force behind our entire lives. Every single thing that we do is informed and filtered through the subconscious mind. If we do not understand how to truly utilize and tap into the power of our subconscious mind, we are missing out on a huge piece of the puzzle. Research has shown that 95% of our reality is created by our subconscious mind, and only 5% is created by our conscious mind. Our conscious mind is essentially everything we are aware of. Our subconscious mind is that deeper level of programming that is running everything from your heart rate to your breathing to how you interact with other people to how you decide what's possible for you, what is not possible for you. And so in this episode, I really want to teach you a bit about the subconscious mind at a deeper level. And then I want to explain to you a 3-step method that you can use in order to rewire the subconscious. And then I'm going to share with you what I do in order to really work with my subconscious mind and what has allowed me to radically transform my life in the matter of a few years by really learning how to use the power of my subconscious mind. Now, I want to start off with this story because there's a book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind that really is the book that got me so deeply interested in learning more about the subconscious mind. And in the book is written by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And he actually has a really interesting story of how he got into the subconscious. So he had this sarcoma. It was like a growth on his body and they didn't quite know what to do with it. And medical intervention was making it worse. And so he kind of got to this point where he was out of options, which oftentimes when we're out of options is when we start looking for alternative routes. And he spoke with someone, I believe it was someone in his church, who told him that you can tap into the power of your subconscious mind to heal you, because your subconscious mind actually has a blueprint for your perfect health. It has a blueprint of your health currently, and then also what it would take for you to experience perfect health. That already exists inside of you. And so what Joseph Murphy did is 3 times a day, he basically did these internal meditations, prayers, whatever you want to call it, where he spoke to his subconscious mind and basically made suggestions of healing for himself. And very, very quickly, he was able to get rid of this sarcoma, something that medical intervention wasn't able to get rid of. And I think that's such a powerful story because it really, there's so much to it, right? There's the power of our own internal dialogue, but then also the power of the ability to create this relationship with our subconscious. Because one thing that I have noticed is that the more that I build a relationship with my subconscious mind, the more powerful it is able to work for me. And that's something we'll get a little more into. So first, I want to just talk about why it's so important for you to really have a good relationship with your subconscious and also know how to work with it. How do you actually influence it? Because it's not the same way that you influence your conscious mind. So your subconscious mind runs everything from your metabolism to your energy levels, to your immune response, even to allergies. So this past 2 weeks, I spent at a very intensive NLP, hypnosis, and MER training that was absolutely fantastic. Something that they did was they called someone up on stage who had a very severe cat allergy. And it was wild because I had no idea that allergies are actually something that's programmed into us. It's not something that we don't have any control over. It's literally programming. And before that, that never occurred to me. I just thought you have allergies or you don't. I've had a lot of allergies throughout my life. I had severe eczema, those sorts of things. I never knew that it was something that was programmed, right? But if you think about it, essentially everything is programming because when we are a baby, right, we are typically in perfect health unless there's a genetic disorder of some sort. So anyway, what happened is he calls this guy up on the stage and he starts asking him about his allergy to cats. And he's like, yeah, I have a very, very severe cat allergy. He's like, even now thinking about cats, I'm kind of getting like congestion. I feel like I'm getting tightness in my breathing. And he's like, if somebody had a cat and they hugged me, I'd have to go change my clothes because it would cause such a reaction to me. And the person who is running it, his name is Dr. Matt, he says, okay. And he does this process on him. He does this subconscious process using the tool MER. And he has him basically go through this process. It takes about 8 minutes, and it's just closing his eyes, visualizing certain things, doing certain things with the subconscious, using specific language. And then he says to him, okay, so how do you feel about cats? And he's like, I feel fine about cats. And he's like, okay, do you want to test it? And they do this demonstration at different events. They always call some up from the audience. So they had a bag of cat hair, and they bring this bag of cat hair up to him. He opens it up. He takes a big whiff of it. He touches some of the cat hair. He has no response because they reprogrammed his response to the allergy. That is how powerful your mind is. I just don't believe that can be overstated, because we so often think that the things we experience are just how we are, or we can't change, or it's difficult to change. But throughout this journey, I have seen so many moments like this, where something that someone thought was not possible to heal, healed instantly, not just in the physical, right? It can also be fears. It can be emotions. At this same training, he brought someone up on stage who had a very, very extreme phobia of snakes. She said that whenever she's walking outside, she's constantly on alert for snakes. Can you imagine that? Like going on a hike and all you're thinking about is, or even walking down your street and all you're thinking about is the fact that there could be a snake that could affect you. So it's not something we all think about. It was a very severe phobia she had. Same thing. He brings her up on stage and she completely gets rid of this snake phobia in about 15 minutes. And I share these as examples of the power of your subconscious mind, because we think that we are so in control. We think that we know ourselves. We think that we know what's going on for us. But there's this whole depth to our subconscious mind that we're often unaware of, this whole depth of programming that we are experiencing and we're not aware of it. And when you learn to shift it and change it, you become the creator, the true creator of your life, in a way that you just cannot be if you are not working actively with your subconscious mind, because it's a massive part of you. In addition to the metabolism, energy levels, those physical things, it also runs your habits. So the things that you automatically do, right? When someone says something to you, it automatically filters that through all of your own perceptions. Your subconscious is automatically doing that. It is responsible for your fears, your emotional reflexes. Anytime you feel triggered, that's a ton of subconscious programming coming to the surface so fast that it's hard to stop that reaction. How you filter and perceive reality, as well as your self-concept. So your self-concept is essentially everything you believe about yourself. That is held within your subconscious mind. So if you believe I'm not good enough, I can't do it, right? It's not possible for me. That is programming you've picked up along the way. And what I think is so amazing is that all of our programming can be changed and adjusted. Your entire relationship with money, your entire relationship with relationships, intimate relationships, friendships, family, all of those things can be adjusted when you learn to work with this part of yourself. I just so deeply believe that this is something that everyone needs to learn how to do, because we spend so much time resisting it. We spend so much time constructing ways to work around it rather than actually working with it. There's a quote from Carl Jung, and I really, really love this quote because I think it kind of summarizes everything that I've just been saying. And it's that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And it's so true. We think that all of these things are just not possible to change, down to the level of allergies. I never knew until this past week that allergies were something that was programming that our mind picked up. And if we can change those things, we can change anything. We can have such power over our lives. That's point number one I really want you to get. Point number two is that change does not have to be difficult. I think there's this narrative in society, right? I remember growing up and I feel like it was Seinfeld, one of the characters on Seinfeld was in therapy for like years. I might totally be remembering this wrong, but I remember these ideas of people being in therapy for just very long periods of time, right? I do not believe it takes a long time to change. I think with the right tools, with the right guidance, you can create changes in your life quickly and rapidly. It doesn't mean that it's going to be something that you don't have to work at and stay consistent with, but it means that you can see changes and results quickly, right? Like this person who changed his cat allergy in the matter of like 10 minutes. Changes can happen rapidly. And the belief that it takes a long time is what it's going to cause it to take a long time for you. Okay, so that's a belief that I want you to start shifting and changing for yourself. Why do people think that it takes a long time to change? Well, first is because they don't use the right tools. They use conscious mind level tools. Traditional therapy is a conscious approach. It just is, and it can be extremely valuable, right? I'm not saying it's not valuable, but I'm saying it's a conscious mind approach. It's logically trying to understand things that happen to you. The problem with that is our memories are deeply inaccurate. It's very easy to plant memories in someone and change their perspective of their memories, right? Our memories are malleable. They're not these perfect records. We know that, right? We can barely remember what we did yesterday, let alone 25 years ago. So that's the first piece, is that oftentimes people are trying to change their subconscious mind with conscious mind tools. Like therapy, talk therapy is a really big example. A lot of people that come to me have spent a lot of time in therapy, and they can verbally explain to me their challenges and their problems so beautifully, right? They have this awareness, which awareness is essential. It's an essential part of healing, right? A client that comes to me with no awareness is harder for me to work with than a client that comes to me and is super aware of their own challenges. Okay. But it's still not getting to that root level of where that's actually living, because a lot of our subconscious programming happened before we could even verbalize what was happening. It happened before we even had language. So a lot of it is just emotion and feeling. Think about your dog, right? If you have a dog, I think about my dog, Yuma, and his responses to certain things. Like there's this one dog in our neighborhood, and every time we walk by this fence, he's like, bah, 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 barking at this dog. And I'm trying to reprogram him so he doesn't do that, right? But that's so deeply programmed. He doesn't have words. He can't explain like, yeah, I really don't like the pitch of that dog's language. It's just a response. That's a lot of what happened when we were very young. We didn't have the words for it, but it created these responses that we experience for the rest of our lives unless we change them. And they inform something that happened when you were 3 years old could be informing your work relationship with your boss, because there's some form of similarity, right? And you could spend years of talking about it and you would never know because you were too young to actually know what was really, really going on. But it was impressing upon your brain certain experiences, beliefs, emotions, patterns. Okay, that's what I want you to understand. So that's part of it. We don't always know what's causing it, right? We're not using tools that are working with that deeper level of the mind. We're trying to logic our way out of problems that are created by an illogical part of the mind. The subconscious mind is not logical. It's illogical. It operates off of stories and metaphors and visuals and emotion, right? When you close your eyes and I say, think of a really happy memory, likely there will be something that's brought to mind for you. That's your internal representation. We have these internal representations that our subconscious mind holds for everything we've experienced, everything we believe. And when we picture them, they're not like a handwritten logical explanation. They're an image, a metaphor, a feeling. That's how the subconscious mind operates. And yes, we oftentimes don't have the tools, right, to work at that level, but we oftentimes also do not believe it. We don't believe that these sensations we're experiencing, these images that we're seeing in our mind have any value because they don't logically make sense to us. So we poo-poo them, right? We're in a society where we so deeply want to logic through everything. And you just can't with the subconscious mind, which is 95% of our reality. So we have to let go of this obsession with logic, this obsession with trying to understand everything. Some things you're just not meant to understand, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean you can't heal them. That doesn't mean that you can't change them. So another big piece is that oftentimes we're trying to make changes in the subconscious and we're working against a lot of old material. So a lot of this space, right? You can call it the manifestation space online or whatever you want to call it. A lot of the tools that people talk about are like visualization or scripting or affirmations or changing your habits. And I talk about those things too. And those are all extremely valuable, but they are a small piece of the pie because we have this whole level of programming beneath that we need to know how to influence and change in order for those things to be truly effective. So why does shifting and changing our subconscious mind feel so challenging? One of the reasons is it speaks a different language, as I mentioned. We're trying to use our conscious mind language to change it, and that just doesn't work. Think of your dreams, right? Your dreams are not this logical sequence of events. They're totally illogical, right? It might have like a flying pig and a, purple elephant, and you might see someone that you haven't thought about for 20 years. Because that is how your subconscious mind works. It works in these images and these stories that may not make any logical sense to you. And that's why we have to work with it, not try to force our conscious mind approach on it. It's never going to work that way. Another thing I think I see very often too is people think that they just need to reprogram their mind once. But that doesn't make any sense because you are being programmed every single moment of every single day. And whether you are doing the programming or you are just allowing the program to happen to you is going to dictate the quality of your life. So people think, okay, you know what? If I just do work with a hypnotherapist, or I do EDMR once, or I do these things once, like I'm going to be good. That's not how healing works. It is a journey throughout your life. And that doesn't mean that you're always going to need to do the more intensive tools, but it means that you have to have tools that you use on a daily basis, habits that you cultivate on a daily basis to make sure you're programming your mind with what you want versus what you don't want. And I'll share a little bit more about this in terms of like deeper things that you can do. And I highly recommend that you do the deeper things, even on a consistent basis, whether it's once a week or once a month. And then you have daily practices and daily habits that go with that. So that's one thing I see is I think people stop too soon. If they don't feel like their entire life is changing, they give up and they say it doesn't work, right? They read one self-help book or they read 10 self-help books and they're like, well, I didn't change. That's because you didn't change the deeper programming consistently, right? If you have 30 years of operating a certain way, it's not going to change in 1 month or 2 months. You will see results, but you will need to consistently change your habits and consistently be that person and consistently live in alignment with that person, right? It's not about a one and done. It's about becoming this new version of yourself. And so I see a lot of people get discouraged because they're like, well, I've been, working on myself for 2 years and like my entire life isn't exactly what I want it to be. That's not how you look at it. You look at it as every step of the way you're making progress, right? I've been doing this kind of stuff for a long time, like over a decade, and I'm still refining, I'm still changing. And my life has gotten significantly better every single year, every single month even, because these tools work, right? They're a practice. You're not going to brush your teeth once or go to the gym once. You're going to do those things consistently. And the same is true with your mind, if not more so, right? Because your mind is important for every single thing that you do throughout your day, right? Your teeth, they're important. So you do things with them twice a day, but your mind, I don't know. I personally think your mind is a little more important even than your teeth. And your teeth are really important. Something to know as well with working with your subconscious mind is it gets easier over time. So initially, it can feel more challenging because you have more gunk in there, right? Old limiting beliefs, old fears, old memories, old traumas, those have more emotional charge when you first start doing this work. So it can take a little bit longer, right? But the more work that you've done on yourself, the easier it is to change. I'm at the point where when I notice a limiting belief, it's so easy for me to change it because I don't have as much stickiness in my energy field, right? I don't have as much stickiness as I used to. So why is reprogramming not optional? Your subconscious mind, so you have your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, and then you have your higher self, which is your soul, your connection to the universe. You consciously are not able to connect to your higher self. Your conscious mind doesn't connect with that. Your subconscious mind does. It connects with your higher self, with your intuition. And so when we are not doing the reprogramming work and we're living off of those old programs, it's harder for us to connect to our intuition. It's harder for us to connect to the version of ourselves that we came here to be. We can feel a lot of lack of clarity. And something a lot of people will say to me is like, oh, I just don't know. I'm not sure of what decision to make, right? I hear that so often. And that tells me that they're trying to make the decision from their conscious mind. And our conscious mind is where indecisiveness lives. It doesn't live in our subconscious. Our subconscious doesn't have indecision. It's very clear because it's working with a much larger data set than our conscious mind is, right? I've said this in previous episodes. Your subconscious takes in millions of pieces of information, actually billions of pieces of information every single second. And it filters that down to just 126 tiny little pieces of information that you are then consciously made aware of. So that's over 99.999% of the information that you're experiencing on a subconscious level that you are not made aware of. But your subconscious is still storing that information. Your subconscious is a supercomputer. So it's picking up everything, but you are not consciously made aware of that. And so when you're operating off of old programs, what's happening is that 126 pieces of information that you're experiencing is filtered to show you proof of your old programs, your proof that money is hard to make, I must struggle, I'm not lovable, right? Yada, 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 all the gunk stuff. And when we start to shift our subconscious and change those beliefs, we get a new 126 pieces of information that aligns more with the person that we want to be, right? But if you got a lot of gunk in there, it's going to feel a little bit more slow to make those changes, right? And there's some things that can change really rapidly. Some things are going to take a little bit longer. It's going to depend on the person, right? But the more baggage that you have, the more emotional baggage, the more anger, fear, resentment, anxiety, sadness, hurt that you're carrying, the more challenging it is going to be to create those changes. And I'm going to explain to you how we can clear those things in just a moment. So I want to just give a couple of examples of what the gunk or the baggage in the subconscious mind can look and feel like, so you can kind of understand how this might be operating for you. So one is around money, right? Our entire relationship with money, I really believe, is for most people, unless they've done this work, very subconscious, and it's programmed at a very young age. So if you experienced a household where money was extremely abundant, there was no challenges with money, right? Your parents had an abundant mindset. They spoke about money in an abundant way. That's going to create a different reality than if you grew up and your parents were working paycheck to paycheck, or there was never enough money for things, or money was talked about in a scarce way, right? You could be a very happy family and have plenty of money, and money can still be talked about in a very scarce way, right? You can still feel the energy of stress around money, even if your parents don't verbalize it, right? Even if you just saw your dad sitting at the table with bills stressing out around money, that can influence your blueprint. Right? So you would experience those things now as maybe struggling with money, feeling like you never have enough money, just feeling stressed out about money, no matter how much you make, right? Those are the kinds of things that we can experience. In love and relationships, the type of partner that you pick, the type of partner you feel worthy of, is programmed into you from your early formative years, right? They say that before the age of 7, our subconscious mind is just like wide open, right? It's so open. And we also don't have a solid understanding of the world, right? So our programming is coming from a little kid's perception of the world, right? My niece and nephew, I'm going to their birthday party tomorrow, which is going to be super fun. And seeing them and all these other little kids is going to be really interesting because they are getting programmed, right? Their mind is just a little sponge by this world that they don't fully understand, right? And that's the same thing that happened for you. So you want to redo that programming so you're not the effect of it, you become the cause of it. So relationships, what you believe you're worthy of, right? How you believe you deserve to be treated. It so unconsciously shows up in our relationships. And that's why we want to shift and change that programming around that. Also, a big part of this, it's every area of your life, right? I'm just giving some examples, what you're believing about yourself. If you believe that you can be successful, if you believe that you're capable, if you believe that you're smart, if you believe that you can do it, all of those things influence you, right? I think I've shared about this before, but when I was younger, I really struggled to learn to read. Like, I just had such a hard time learning to read, and I didn't really learn until 3rd grade, which, like, I can share that now because I've done the work around it, right? But I was really ashamed of that for a long time. I felt like I was stupid. But then, my parents were so great about it, and they'd always say, well, Albert Einstein like struggled to learn to read too, so you could be as smart as Einstein. But I had to clear those emotions, right? That emotional charge of being called on to read in class, and then people being able to see that I couldn't read, right? And so when I started putting myself out online, I saw a lot of those fears of judgment, of people thinking that I didn't know enough. And none of that resonates with me anymore, because I've shifted that programming, right? That programming didn't need to stay part of me, because it's not the truth. You get to decide what's true for you, right? I could have let it just be like, you know what? Yeah, I can't do a podcast because like when I was, in 2nd grade, people used to make fun of me. So like, yeah, I'm good. Like, I'm not going to do that. But that wouldn't have been in the highest path of my soul, right? I want to live in the highest path of my soul. So I'm not going to let my old programming dictate who I become. How do we reprogram? And I want to say, I'm going to explain this path and these steps to you, and I'm going to give you a lot of juicy details. And I'm going to say that there's no way for me to actually give you all of this information in a podcast episode, because a lot of it has to be experienced. A lot of it is literally, I've spent over a decade studying this. So when I lead my clients through it, it's this deep intuition I have of how to make these changes, right? And I'm going to do my best to explain it to you. But if you really are serious about this and you want help with it, send me the word podcast on Instagram, and I'll send you a 5-minute video about my program where I guide you through this process in a very structured way, in a really, really powerful way, where you're going to be able to open up your life, because you're going to change your subconscious mind. So send me that word podcast. My Instagram is @alignmentwithjen. Okay, so how to reprogram. First, I want to say it's a cycle. It's not you do it once, right? I said that before, but it needs to be reiterated. It's a cycle, because think of your personal growth and your development as a person as an upward cycle, not as a line that goes to the side. You're constantly cycling upward, and at each new level, you might face the same challenges in a new way, right? You might feel more worthy when you start your business, but then when you get to, 250K months, you might struggle with worthiness again, right? Those same challenges can show up. And so you want to have the tools no matter what level you're at. The tools don't change. They don't change at all. All right, there's 3 steps to this process. Number 1 is uncovering. This is really that self-awareness. The more aware you are of yourself, meaning the more you study yourself like a scientist without judgment and shame, but literally just notice your own habits and notice your own perspective, the more that you're going to be able to uncover what's going on for you at a deeper level. Because any behavior you have is based in a belief. That's a really important thing to recognize. Every single thing you do and every single thing you don't do, all the ways you spend your time, you spend your money, you spend your energy, are based in your beliefs held at an unconscious level. Thus, your results are all based there. So we need to understand them. I do this with my clients really in 2 ways. One is either through questioning, right? If it's a one-on-one client, having a conversation, or through journaling, right? Journaling is a really powerful way. So literally today, if you want to start this, you're like, I'm ready to go, Jen. Start with just some journaling, right? Start with connecting to yourself on that deeper level. I use very specific journal prompts in my programs that are designed to access the unconscious, because your unconscious will give you answers to absolutely everything you ever ask it. You just have to ask it in a certain way, right? So we have to know how to ask it. But don't worry about that right now. If you want to get started today, literally just journaling about yourself, about how you felt, about where you're feeling blocked, you're going to start to uncover things. You're going to build that level of self-awareness, okay? That's number 1, is the uncover. And I do believe that uncover is a lot easier done with a coach or another person, because the mind that created the problem doesn't see it as a problem, right? So your challenges, your mind created for a reason. It actually has reasons why it fears being on social media. It fears having money. It fears being in love. because it's protecting you from something, right? So it's not viewing that as a problem. It's viewing it as like, hey, I'm doing a good job. So you want to make sure you have some form of outside perspective. This is why I so deeply believe in coaching and transformational work, right? These 2 weeks that I spent learning these methods, I did a ton of inner work on myself throughout that process, right? I am a different person because there's always new levels that you can reach. I'm never going to stop doing the rewiring work. I'm never going to stop because I know every time I do it, my life opens up. And I think that's pretty cool. Number 2 is neutralize. So every belief that you have you could say this, every belief that you have or every fear, every challenge that you face, every problem has an emotional charge to it. Whether you can put words to it or not, emotion came before words, right? Babies feel a ton of emotions. That's why they cry. That's why they laugh. They're feeling emotions even though they don't have words for the emotions. Same for you. So we want to clear the emotional charge around these things that are showing up for you. And there's a couple ways we can do this. One is we can focus on specific beliefs and clear the charges around those beliefs, or we can focus on specific areas in your life and clear the emotional charges around those areas. So that's the second, because emotions are magnetic. So if in my field, in my subconscious, I have a lot of fear or sadness or anxiety or hurt or sadness, I think I said those, I'm going to attract more experiences to prove that to be true, right? It's really funny because you can notice this in other people. I have this amazing friend, and she went through a really stressful period, and that stressful period gave her a lot of anxiety. And we went to a Dr. Joe Dispenza event, and at this event, she kept pointing out all the things that we should worry about, right? And she'd never done that in the past, but she was pointing out like, oh yeah, we should be worried about this. Like we should make sure we take care of this. We should do these things. And it was such a stark contrast because she'd never done it before, right? But her mind was finding proof of the emotional charge that was already holding, right? She was already anxious and she was finding proof of that. That's how our minds work. So we want to make sure we neutralize. That's the second step. There's different tools we can use for this. In my programs, honestly, I don't even know anymore. I used to say 10 tools. I think I use way more than that now because I've been studying this for so long, right? But certain tools are hypnosis, RRT, EFT, tapping. Energy healing can be helpful for this. Visualization, scripting, those are some of the lighter tools that you can use. MER, there's so many tools that we can use for this neutralized piece. What I've personally found is that different challenges respond better to different tools, and different people respond better to different tools at different phases of their healing journey. So what I do with my clients is we use a variety for everything we're working with. And I find that creates results really fast. And what I do, like specifically in my group coaching program, is I'll have them rate the emotional charge. So let's say you identify that you don't feel worthy to be loved as you are, and that feels like a freaking 10, that feels strong. Then we'll use I do a bunch of little mini processes. So they might be 5, 2 minutes, these short little processes. We'll do a bunch. Then within 20 minutes or so, that belief will be at a 5, from a 10 to a 5, meaning it's dropped half its emotional charge. Then by the end of the session, it'll be a 0. And what that means is if there's no emotional charge, the mind doesn't believe it to be true anymore. So then we can go to the third step, which is imprint. You imprint what you'd rather believe. And there's a lot of ways we can do this too, right? This is really more where most manifestation work actually starts, is this level. And that's why I believe people get so frustrated with the manifestation teachings in space, is because they're like, well, I'm visualizing, and nothing's happening. Yes, because you're visualizing on a pile of baggage, right? You need to clear out the gunk in order to make those things a lot more effective. So imprint, that is after we've removed the charge, we choose what we'd rather believe. We can do this through visualization, scripting, affirmations. I find the most effective way is with my clients to get them into a really relaxed, trance-like state, and then get them to listen to specific positively phrased suggestions. Essentially, it's a hypnosis, right? I find hypnosis is really powerful for once you've cleared the emotional charge to imprint. I love, love, love doing that. for imprinting, and for the Neutralize as well, we want to take advantage of specific brainwave patterns. The alpha brainwave pattern, when we feel more relaxed, that's actually when our brain is open to learning. They call it the learning phase. And so when you're in that more relaxed space, your mind is more impressionable, right? And that happens naturally when we wake up and when we go to sleep. And it also happens naturally every 90 minutes of the day. And so that can be good or bad, right? If I'm scrolling when my mind goes into that more open to learning phase, I'm going to pick up a lot of programming that I may not necessarily want, right? So the last thing I want to share with you is I want to share the reprogramming work that I personally do and my personal process for this. What I believe in having a deeper weekly rewiring session, whether that's live with someone. In my program, I give you a rewiring library, and we also do a weekly live session of rewiring. If you're first starting out, you should be doing it on a weekly basis, even more than that maybe, if you really are desperate to make changes. But weekly is a pretty good cadence. As you've done more, you can do more monthly or twice a month. I probably do twice a month or so deeper rewiring sessions. Then you want to have a daily practice. So something that you do on a daily basis, just like brushing your teeth, to make sure that you're programming in the things you want to program in. So this could be a hypnosis that you listen to when you fall asleep. It could be you visualizing your goals, right? Just put on a song and visualize yourself achieving your goals. Something that can cause this to go awry as well is if your subconscious mind doesn't know what you want, right? You can do all this reprogramming, but if it doesn't have a goal, it's just okay, I guess we're good. I don't have anything I need to work towards. So we want to make sure we give it clear instructions on what it needs to do. So your daily practice, it could be something like that. Meditation can also be a daily practice. Meditation is really powerful because it works on your connection with your higher self, so you can receive more insights and more downloads. Then we have our daily habits. So this is the part that I think a lot of people get stuck on because they think oh yeah, I'm good. I did a bunch of reprogramming. Now I just sit back and wait. No, that's not how life works. We live in a physical universe that requires physical action, that requires us to do things in the physical. All these other things we do with our mind make it easier and faster, but we still have to take action. And we want to make sure that our habits are aligned with the version of us that we want to do. So something I do every single week is I look at my calendar, right? I'll pull up my Google Calendar and I'll look and I'll say, how I'm using my time actually reflect the kind of person I want to be, the goals that I have? And I color code everything. My client work is a certain color, my gym time is a certain color, my relationship is a certain color, my friendships are a certain color, right? Everything has its own colors. So I can very visually see, am I really spending my time in accordance with who I want to be, right? And that's the daily habits. That's really following through. And I honestly think this is often the hardest part for most people is it's fun to do the rewiring work. Honestly, all my women leave the sessions and they're like, this was so good, so fun. But if you're not doing the things that you know you're meant to be doing, then you're not going to see the results that you want to see. So I hope this was extremely helpful for you. I think this is the deepest episode I've done on the subconscious, and honestly, we could go forevermore. I love talking about this. So I hope you found this valuable. Send me the word podcast on Instagram if you want to learn more about doing this together. And also please leave a comment so I can hear your response to this. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you, and leave a rating on the show if you have not. It really helps me to be able to make more episodes for you that are really, really valuable and effective. So, all right, I'll see you in the next episode.